Ken Thorpe on the line this morning. Interesting guy. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. He's a local boy, you know. He was born here in Indiana, or he lived here in Indiana. Ken, were you actually born here in Indiana?
No, I wasn't, but no, I spent many years there in Indiana. Fond memories, and played a lot of football and basketball there. So great town.
There you go. Conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Ken is the former Health and Human Services Deputy Assistant Secretary for Health Policy under President Clinton, which was a while back. He's the current chair of the Department of Health Policy and Management in the Rolling School of Public Health at Emory University. And we want to talk to Ken because he knows some stuff here that we need to know as well. Ken, this COVID vaccine, when the thing came out, when the pandemic struck, we were told all kinds of things about how difficult it is to develop a vaccine. This is a whole different playing field, though, now, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's pretty amazing that the pharmaceutical industry got this done so quickly. But it happened because it was a very effective public-private partnership. That is, when the government pre-purchased hundreds of millions of doses, that provided the upfront funding for the drug companies to do the basic research, discovery, and ultimately the manufacturing of this vaccine. So this happened in record time. Developing a new drug could take years and years, could cost up to $1.7 billion in development costs. So this was a really good model that I think in terms of discovery has worked very well.
Has this model been tried before? Has it been tried to this effect before?
Well, I think that the closest example would be on the Human Genome Project, where there was federal funding put into place that allowed scientists to really discover and map out chromosomes, which has generated a whole new field of what's called pharmacogenomics. That is, matching medications to different genetic makeups of individuals, because people respond to medications very differently. So that was another good example of a very effective public-private partnership.
When you, as somebody who is inside the industry and you can look at things and you have resources that maybe the rest of us don't have, and expertise that certainly the rest of us don't have, when you watched this thing come into being and saw the steps that were being passed along the way and how quickly they were you as astounded as we have been?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the short period it took for for Pfizer and Moderna and now Johnson & Johnson to get these drugs on the market was, I think, nothing short of remarkable. And it really highlights the importance of having that private sector infrastructure sitting there ready to go to deal with whatever type of short-term public health crisis we're facing. So it's a model that we need to follow going forward. We have other existing threats. Antimicrobial resistance is a big problem. That is going into a hospital, getting a surgical procedure, getting an infection, and getting a medication that's resistant. It doesn't respond. Mm-hmm. So that's another area going forward that we really need to pay attention to, and this public-private partnership is a really good model to spur vaccine development in that space as well.
And we're, as a general public, we're probably pretty frightened of the fact that the pandemic took us over so quickly and became the thing just overnight, literally overnight. And because of that, we're looking into the future and saying, could it happen again? If it does happen again, are we all shut down again? And is the development of a vaccine going to be, maybe the word isn't as easy, but certainly as rapid as it was this time? Are we right to be a little bit trepidatious?
Well, I think we should certainly always be on guard here, but I think fortunately we come up with a very effective model so that we can have a very rapid response to any type of emerging antimicrobial or biological threat, that we have the capacity here for the pharmaceutical industry to quickly respond. So this model is a good one. I think that we need to right now take a step back and stockpile, certainly stockpile in terms of personal protective equipment, masks, and so on, that we were a little taken off guard on. We weren't really equipped to have those in ready supply. So there are things we can do right now to become more agile and anticipate the next crisis.
And as such, we have a model that we can work off of with this particular pandemic, and who knows what's coming next. We have these 3 vaccines that have been developed. Are more on the way, and are they going to be more effective or more versatile than the ones that are in use right now?
Well, I mean, there's going to be ongoing experiments and ongoing research that has to go on for all 3 companies. I think the good news is that Merck has decided to chip in and help on the manufacturing of the Pfizer drug. We're starting to see that that's making a big difference in terms of getting more supply, getting more people vaccinated. But we need to have more information. How do the vaccines respond to different populations, children? How long does it last? So this is going to be an ongoing process that all 3 of these companies are going to have to continue to do research.
Ken Thorpe is with us, Ph.D. He is the former HHS Deputy Assistant Secretary for Health Policy under President Clinton. Ken, with that sort of a background, you have the unique ability to sort of let us in the back door so we can take a look at the way that public-private partnerships work. And based upon that, and the way that this one in particular worked, what is the future for these sorts of ventures, and what are, if there are any, what are the dangers of them?
Well, I mean, I think the future is positive. So right now in the Congress, there are pieces of legislation that would put into place a similar model where the federal government provides upfront funding to have the drug companies develop innovative new vaccines to deal with drug-resistant bacteria. So that's really our next sort of generation of emerging threats. The number of antimicrobial resistant infections has doubled over the last decade. So hopefully that's an area that we can get some movement this year in the Congress. I think we've got to be very careful, though, going forward to make sure that the intellectual property rights of the drug companies are respected. Because if you don't protect the intellectual property of these companies, you won't have the infrastructure and the capacity to respond as quickly as these companies did. So it's a delicate balance. I think we got it pretty right this time around. And again, hopefully going forward this year and next year, that we can pass this legislation that would provide the funding for these pharmaceutical industry companies to develop the research to deal with this emerging threat of antimicrobial resistant infections. Do
we need, as a country, to bring more of those particular functions home to our shores and not be dependent upon other countries to be suppliers of us to us of some of the essentials when it comes to developing vaccines or storing them?
Yeah, we do. Not only developing vaccines, but just having the basic personal protection equipment. Things like surgical masks, which we ended up having to import from China for several months because we didn't have the manufacturing capacity and the funding here in place to do it. So we do now. That is switched over. I think that's an area that we can, again, continue to ramp up production and develop stockpiles in anticipation of something coming downstream. Who knows? Hopefully not. But I think anticipating sort of the next version of a crisis like this is something that I think we've learned a lot from COVID-19.
Yeah, this pandemic of the past year has really opened a bunch of eyes to all kinds of different possibilities, dangers and benefits both. Ken Thorpe has been with us here this morning. Ken, we got to call upon you again because you're really somebody who is right up there at the forefront of the information that is out there, and so I hope that we can.
Absolutely, happy to do it anytime.
And the folks down at the Coney, Tim McQuaid and the group, they tell me they're going to miss you greatly on Wednesday if you're not here.
Yeah, I was going to try to get there, but I unfortunately don't think I'm going to make it. So good luck to everybody on Wednesday.
There you go. Ken Thorpe, thanks again.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Bye now. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160 FM and AM.